I know this seems very spooky, and when I picked it, I was like, oh, this is a really good horror story background, but I think the horror in it all is gonna be like the how illiterate I was when it came to crushes and romantic feelings as like a teenager.
I'm excited. I like that my dating your demons was in front of a tunnel of love, and mine ended with a story about going to Disneyland, and yours is going to be at a spooky playground.
It's just a spooky playground. Just a spooky,
Which is
spooky
like maybe
playground.
not spooky. Like again, the ghost the whole time will just be your inability to interpret feelings.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. So this happened when I was 15. And being 15 and being Mormon is kind of a big deal because it's a year before you can like officially date.
Mm.
Like you're not supposed to date until you're 16 when you're Mormon, which is just like a standard, kind of a general guideline that they want you to follow. I mean, for like good reason, because they don't want to necessarily like have people be promiscuous. Promiscuous. I don't even know why I pronounced the word that way, but
I don't know, but I like that you said it twice too to make sure we heard you.
yeah.
Yeah,
They don't want you sleeping around, whoring around. Uh,
yeah. Speaking of horror,
yeah, yeah. This one's with a W now. We're
yeah,
about both of them. Uh,
turn from a
but
horror story to a horror story.
yes,
Yes.
100%. They also, I don't know, do you think there's any other reason why they chose 16 to be like the number?
The magical age.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I do know like because this is there were always like I don't know, there were always people who found loopholes because people find loopholes for everything. And this is also like when you're in a high demand religion, and you like know quote unquote the rules, like everyone has a different relationship to them. And so there are like the families who are a lot more like laid back about everything, and then like the families who are a lot more like to the letter, and then like the way intense families who go even further. But I like know that one of the loopholes that, especially when we lived in Florida, one of the loopholes was, well, you can go to dances when you're 14. And so I can go to homecoming because he asked me to homecoming and it's a dance.
Yeah.
But then it would be like, but you're going on a date to that dance. So it's the
Yeah.
date part. Like if you were just going by yourself, it'd be one thing.
Yeah.
And so it'd be like parents would be like, no, it's a dance. She can go. So like she couldn't go like I had this one friend who her parents would let her go to whatever dance she got asked to because she was like, she was cute, she was a cheerleader, she was popular, and her parents knew that that was important to her. And they didn't want to like ruin that. But it was one of those things where I remember just being really confused because I was just trying to figure out like I didn't have a good read on nuance and where like nuance was allowed or even really how or what it was in within our faith. And so I just remember being like, but wait a minute, I don't get it. And it was really just like her parents saying, like, we think it's a stupid rule, just go to these states. We don't get it.
Yeah.
Chelsea! Sorry, here you
The proprioception attack.
are. Perception check. um, but yeah, like so there were like loopholes like that, or people who are like, well, we're going out, but we're like
Yeah.
not dating. We're just like
Yeah.
hanging out at school. And like there were always like loopholes like that. I don't know if
Yeah.
that was a thing where you lived.
That kind of was. I think this will give you a good kind of idea about like where I was at and like what my friends were doing when not what we were doing. So there was probably a group of 10 of us.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it was 12 of us. But there was a good group of like teenagers around the same age, like my age. And obviously, when you're growing up in a high demand religion, especially because there's a big push for becoming friends with the people that are your age and spending a lot of time with the people that your age or the same age that we spent a lot of time together. And like we would hang out. I think like our parents liked it too. Like our parents were like okay with it because they all knew that we had the same like values and like the morals and all this other stuff. Um, but like I just remember, especially when I was a teenager, that like following the rules, I mean, I wasn't really big into rules, but like if there was, I'd pick and choose which rules that I wanted. But if there was a rule that was like very clear about like, hey, you can't date until you're 16, then like I was gonna follow it. But I think I chose to pick that rule because I was just so freaking terrified of like people actually genuinely liking me or
Hmm.
like seeing me for who I was. And I didn't, very much like you, I didn't know how to kind of act when someone was like flirting with me. One, I was very similar to you where I didn't recognize that that was flirting. And two, I didn't know how to like reciprocate that in a way that wasn't, that didn't feel awkward. I mean, and it felt more genuine and authentic. Like I didn't,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if this is what your experience was, but I remember anytime I tried flirting, it was just me imitating what I'd seen other people do. And then like none of it felt authentic because I was also not like an actor, like a good
yeah,
actor that way. So it was just me feeling very clunky all the time because I'm like, I think this is what I'm supposed to do, but it didn't feel authentic to me and it just wasn't me and I also wasn't good at it. You know what I mean?
yeah. I flirting to me was like if you were a boy and I liked you and I was able to like have a conversation with you. Like I was
Yeah.
being able to flirt. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't
And
fun,
I
but
would always be like, it's so obvious. How does he not know? And
yeah,
again, like either if I was like making fun of you a lot
yeah,
or just talking to you a lot, I'm like,
yeah,
obviously I'm super into you. Is it so
yeah,
embarrassing? Does everyone know?
yeah.
Is it? No.
I definitely I fell into the camp of like if I was talking to you a lot for sure. But it also there was I was like so terrified too. Like if I really liked someone, I would just like give them silent treatment because I didn't know what to do or how to act. And so I would just like be like, I don't know how to talk to you. So
Mhm.
I'm just like not gonna talk to you and I'm gonna try to be invisible and go hide because I don't want to do something that like I don't want you to notice me.
Yeah. I think too, like sometimes it would depend on my energy level because some days when you're just having one of those days where you just don't have like a lot of energy,
Yeah,
like you just are just kind of like you want to be there because you need to be there, but you also don't really feel like you have anything interesting that you want to talk about
yeah,
or like you're just like having a more low energy day. So you're like,
yeah,
well, I still need to
for
get
sure.
the points of being here,
Yeah,
but I don't
yeah.
actually want to interact because I don't have the social energy for interaction right now.
A lot of that was like the social energy. I also think that like there was so much pressure on I put on myself around like how to connect and actually relate to the peers because
Mhm.
whenever I mean I had like a pretty traumatic experience in the fifth grade where like I I was friends with everyone. Like I was a very social person, but then like one day I went to school and no one would talk to me, and I finally got someone to like tell me it was because someone spread a rumor about me. And I still to this day don't know what that rumor was, but it meant that the last half of the fifth grade I just like hung out with special needs kids because they were no one really talked to them.
And
But
they
like
couldn't care less what someone
yeah,
was about you.
seriously.
Yeah.
Like they do not give a rat's ass about like
Mhm.
the hottest gossip. And they were always looking for volunteers for like to go play with them. And so I
Yeah.
just like volunteered and like go went and played with them. So I think I was still navigating a lot of that of like I
Mhm.
can't be authentically myself because I don't know how people are gonna like weaponize or like what they're gonna do to like ostracize me. Um, so a lot of it was just like very much like I'm not gonna talk and I'll just like go along with whatever anyone else wants to do because like it's not safe for me to like do anything else. And I think a lot of that kind of stuff like came up when I was like hanging out with this group of friends when we were like 15. And I remember, I mean, when you put guys and girls together around that age, with just like the hormones going crazy and you're spending that much time together and you're in a high demand religion that like values getting married at a young age and having families and like marrying within the faith and like everything else. I think uh people just naturally started to like gravitate towards each other and like claim the other person. And there was one time we were all hanging out at a park at night and they were like literally just like pairing up. And in my very like ADHD, I have to follow this rule kind of brain witnessing this. I was like, one, what the fuck is going on? Because like this is against the rules. But two, like I just was so uncomfortable with like people pairing up and I knew no one was gonna choose me because like I wasn't, or I just like assumed people weren't going to choose me because I was like, one, I don't want that because then I have to figure out like how do you even act in like a situation when someone likes you? But
Mhm.
two, like how, yeah, it's just like wasn't part of the rules, wasn't part of the culture. And around that time too, like every other weekend we were being like taught either a lesson in Sunday school or had like a broadcast across like the entire church, like around the world from like the higher like authority figures that were like you should not date until you were 16. Like that was just such like that was the main thing. uh
Yeah.
and so I remember me trying to be like the good influence because I also knew that a lot of their parents would only let them go do stuff if like I was part of the group. It was kind of back to like the ska, going to like the backyard ska show. So I was like,
Yeah.
I want to be in good graces with the parents because I'm fine with that. And at least it lets me hang out with like people my age. But like I'm just so freaking uncomfortable. I have to say something. So I said something to the effect of like, as they were pairing off, I was like, you guys are idiots. And if these guys were any sort of like men or like gentlemen, they would wait like 6 months until they were 16. Like what is like the rush to do this? And then I think I just like walked off and like went to my friend's place and then just like sat on their sat in their driveway waiting for them to come back. Because I was just so freaking uncomfortable. It's so funny to like look back at it too, because I think a lot of it was like one, the projecting of like the moral superiority too. Like that was definitely pretty hot in like the high demand religion is like your value and your worth was kind of based on how good you were at following the rules.
Yeah.
And your contributions to the community were based on like how good you were at following the rules. And so I definitely was like, I have to follow these rules because it will get more people to approve of me. But yeah, it's just so funny. And the funny thing is that no one in that group like married each other. We all just kind of went and did our separate things and married different people. And a lot of them, I think I'm the only one in that group that does not have a kid. Um, and I think I was the one who got married the latest in life, which was
Mhm.
also kind of by design, by my choice too. But yeah, it's just funny to see like what we take a stance on and then to go back and be like, oh, there was some like pretty deep like mental models and then
Yeah.
also some pretty deep, maybe some like unresolved like hurt and trauma too that was like definitely impacting like how it was showing up and how I thought I had to relate to my peers.
Yeah. Well, if I may, here are some like insights that I have or thoughts that I have,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which are like number one, even though like your motivations may not have been as pure as you thought they were at the time, they may very well have been born out of that like moral superiority slash deference to authority. It makes sense to me because you were looking for validation from other people, right? But
100%.
it also, I hope you can appreciate, like, at any age, how hard it is to speak up and speak out to your friends
Yeah,
that in a way that makes you different than them. But especially when you're 15. And so, like, first of all, like, props to you because you are having to fight against the fact that, hey, I know socially I've somehow been put on blast before and I never got any clear information why.
yeah,
And I'm really afraid of that.
yeah,
But I still am going to speak to what I believe in this moment, at least in the way that I think I believe it,
yeah.
even though it was self-protection. So I hope at
Yeah.
least you can give yourself props for that.
Yeah, I think like that didn't even register as something I should give myself props for. One,
Yeah.
because I really think that that is how my parents like raised us. Uh,
Mhm.
it's so funny. I was thinking a lot about this earlier this year about how growing up in such a high demand religion and getting basically rules. I mean, it takes all the executive functioning out of your life because it
Yeah.
teaches you what to wear, what to eat, what to think, how to act, how you should structure your day. Like it just touches on every single thing. Um, so yes, I was raised in that environment, but I was also raised in an environment in a family unit where my mom and dad, they were so adamant about like, you have a voice, you need to use it. So like if anything feels off, if you do not agree with anything, even if it comes from like authority or from people that you respect, like if you see something, say something, essentially, is what they were saying. And also like just be very direct, which I also think was like part of like growing up in a household of neurodivergent folks who were not diagnosed and were dysregulated and trying their best, but
Yeah.
still just trying to figure out like what was a way that worked for them to connect to each other. And so it's always been kind of, I think that's kind of bit me in the ass sometimes, but it's something like a trend that I've always done. So I don't know if I've ever like thought like, wow, this is different. I think it's just more of the things like, why doesn't everyone do this?
Yeah.
I recognize
Well,
that.
yeah. I was gonna say, I hope you recognize because especially too, like think about again, what does your brain want to do at all times? Keep you alive. What does that mean? It's gonna search for safety. And when you're a teenager, a lot of that is social safety.
Yeah,
So the
for sure.
fact that you like, I mean, it sounds like your parents then did a good job of helping you feel safe in yourself and in what you wanted to, like what you believed, whether or not it
Yeah,
was a really intentional, conscious choice at the time.
yeah,
Like the fact that you were able to forego safety where most teenagers find it, which is by conforming with the group, and
yeah,
being able to find it by feeling like you could speak up and out. Like that's really remarkable. So honestly, like that's why I say, like, just make sure you give little Chelsea, 15-year-old Chelsea props for the fact that that's a really hard thing for teenagers to do regardless of how pure your intentions may have been. But also, too, I would even like point out to you, like, you knew on some level you weren't ready for the experiences they were seeking out.
yeah, for
And
sure.
so, in that sense, the safest way to, because you didn't want to voice that, maybe that's where the safety wasn't going to be socially.
Yeah,
So instead, it was like, well, of course, then it makes more sense to like turn it on them. But again, it makes sense to me from like a social safety, like a your brain is keeping you alive standpoint,
yeah,
because you're like, this is an experience I'm not ready for. I
yeah,
don't know exactly why I'm not ready for it.
yeah,
I do have some data that people will ostracize me sometimes without any reason that I'm aware of.
yeah,
So maybe even the safest choice for me to make right now is to make them feel bad about breaking these shared rules we have, but really it's going to keep me safe from something that I'm not interested in or ready for right now.
yeah,
So like again, and I would say like, yeah, like obviously objectively now with the adult lens, you're like, oh, well, that was like a lot of like self-righteously throwing them under a bus kind of thing.
it
But
was,
again, like it totally makes sense to me because you're like, this was not an experience I was ready for. I
yeah,
have to get safety. I'm able to actually access a form of safety most kids my age don't have, which is I do feel comfortable speaking up against my peers. But the thing that I'm not comfortable doing is telling them exactly why I'm looking for safety right now, which
yeah,
is I don't want to do the thing that they're doing because I just don't feel ready for it.
yeah,
So instead, you use like this, moral rule as your
yeah,
reasoning. And again, it takes like a lot of courage to speak up against your friends. It's like from Harry Potter when Neville got those 10 house points because he tried to stop Hermione and Ron and them. So you would be getting house points if you were at what is that? Hogwarts.
awkward. Maybe,
But yeah.
maybe.
Mm.
I think it's funny too, because I think uh I don't know if you felt like this too, but I feel like growing up in a in an environment that was changing because we were moving and um just having different experiences that not a lot of people typically have. That it kind of forced me to grow up and kind of have like a very different or maybe more mature outlook than people who have been kind of at the same place their entire lives. Not to
Yeah.
say like one's better than the other. It's just
No, but I
experience.
think you already had a lot more experience of the fact that relationships can be transient for any number of reasons. And
Yeah,
just because you lose access to one set of relationships doesn't mean that you can't access more.
yeah,
So I feel like, yeah, I totally agree because I feel like the experience of moving around, not that it's better than others, but it does give you a lot of experience of um already realizing that like friendships aren't finite
yeah,
or are a finite resource, I should say,
yeah,
that you can always find people to interact with.
yeah,
And so even if you're losing touch with one set of people, whether it's because you're moving or just because things change, it doesn't feel nearly as devastating because you're already like, okay, cool, well, that happens anyway.
yeah.
And you can easily like bounce back
It's
versus people who don't have that experience. But I would even say like, I don't know, like because in my family, I'm the youngest. And my brother, who is like about 6 years older than me, so like a little less than 6 years older than me, he constantly was talking about how much he hated how much we moved growing up. And
mm,
that was like a big point of contention with him and my parents when they were fighting when he was a teenager. He hated how much he moved around. He thought it was unfair, blah, blah, blah. I was the youngest, so I had like no expectations of fairness at all from my parents. As far as like I was getting hand-me-downs all the time.
yeah,
I also like when people talk about how the youngest are spoiled, I was like, no, that wasn't really my experience. Because like my brother got a lot of like, to me, it seemed I could see easily how he was getting a lot of preferential treatment. He was the boy and he was the oldest. Things went his way a whole lot more than I think he really quite recognized. And that's not to say like things didn't go my way. They did. But like it was just funny because I wasn't nearly as like emboldened to feel
yeah,
entitled to anything in my family compared to my siblings. I
okay,
very much was just like, oh, this is just what it is. Like I was
yeah,
a lot more like, yeah, that's fine. And so, I mean, and again, I also appreciate that like ADHD is a spectrum, and even if people in the family share the same diagnoses or genetics, it'll still present differently because you're your own person.
yes,
And he is someone who maybe doesn't like change and novelty nearly as much as I do. I love novelty.
yeah,
I'm always like, ooh, what's new? I need a new fix. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that's my thing. But like, yeah, so like I went to 5 different elementary schools. I went to like I moved in after I had started first grade and fourth grade and eighth grade. So like moving
yeah,
in the middle or like after a school year had started happened to me several times.
yeah,
Um, and so, yeah, like the downside is I do tend to have a more restless energy when I'm in a one place for long because I'm not used to people really
yeah, same,
seeing me in the way that people will see you if you're in one place for a long time.
same,
But, and again, I know that's why like our little gypsy hearts connected, but
yeah,
it's funny because like to hear him talk about it, like he and I moved just as much as each other pretty much.
yeah,
And like I had just as much transition like during school. But to me, I was like, that's fine. Because to me, my takeaway was great, cool, new place. I can make friends. And I had so much practice and experience doing it
yeah,
that it was like nothing I ever really thought twice about until people would started pointing out to me, like, wow, it's really easy for you to talk to people. And I was like, oh, well, I've had a lot of practice.
yeah,
You know
same,
what I mean? And so, like, to me, it was just like even within one family, you can have a different relationship and experience with the same kind of situation. And so some of it just depends on like who you are as a person. And right now I'm realizing I don't know why I started telling you about this, but it related to what you were saying.
think it's because like, well, we got there because moving around definitely helps
That's
you.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, so like it doesn't feel as like
yeah.
dire straits if you have to speak out against friends.
Yeah, it doesn't. And I think the last point that you made about how people can have different experiences, even if they or different interpretations of the same experiences. I feel the same way like growing up in like a high demand religion. I feel the same way with like living in the places that we lived. I feel the same way um like about moving as like, I mean, great example of like your brother and
Yeah.
you and the different experiences and um, yeah, it's just you never know what's going on like internally and like how they like what experiences they have or like how they're seeing things that kind of shapes the experience. I mean, even if you look back to the friends that I was hanging out with as they were like pairing off like in the playground at night type of a thing. um, like to them it was like no big deal. And I even
Mhm.
remember them saying, like you pointed out at the beginning, where some families were just like super lenient or more lenient about the rules, and it didn't even like the crushes had been going on for so long between some of these people to where like their families definitely knew, and it got to the point where some of the families would even joke about their kids getting married to each other, like type of a thing. And I think it just all of that just made me feel so deeply uncomfortable because like I just did not want that. Like I knew from a very young age that like I didn't want to get married young, and I knew that a way to a surefire way to get married young is to date
Yeah.
young.
Can't get married, you can't date me.
So like if I did not date, I would not get married, and I could go live my best life and do some of the things I wanted to do and not be beholden to like a partner. But yeah, it's so funny to see how our little teenage brains and also like our little kid brains like try to make sense and of how
Yeah.
to keep us safe, but also it's yeah, our brains are so
No,
fun. Little
they
pattern.
really are. Well, and I was gonna say, and that also speaks to like how context influences the choices you make. Because yeah, if you grew up in a family, or let's say you didn't grow up in like a community or a religion that put a lot of emphasis on marriage and dating and did the way most people, I would argue, in the world, but especially in this country, see it, which is just like dating is a pretty normal part of teenage experience, and it's not that big of a deal, and there's no rush to get married. And so, even under that context, maybe you would have been like ready to hang out and chill in the park because you wouldn't worry about how hanging out with a crush now might, like, because obviously there is some like catastrophizing there where it's like, oh no, but if I hang out with you, then that means we're gonna date and then we have to get married and I don't want to get married. And it's all this like projecting of nothing that's even real. But because you knew that that was like a pattern you saw a lot, like, of course, that was where you were worried. And so, just like you, like we pointed out, you realized the best way to like prevent any of that was to stop it right here and be like, I don't even want to do any of this. I'm going to go sit in a driveway.
Yeah,
And, but listen, Chelsea, like this is coming from someone who is so similar, and I have absolutely no judgment for you because it was like I was always of two minds where I always felt so terrible about myself and I just wanted someone to like validate me that I was worthy of love. But then I also didn't want to date because it was against the rules, but also because I didn't want to get married. But I also wanted to get married so I could feel special. But more than anything, I wanted to get married so I could escape my family. But then I also didn't want to get married because then I'd have to be married. And so I was like constantly like spiraling in my head. And
yeah.
so it would be like so stupid. I also don't know if this was something that you ever experienced or if this was just me kind of noticing something that maybe wasn't even there. But sometimes too, like within a religion, because there was so much emphasis on dating, it was really hard just to be casual and just get experience with dating in a way that didn't feel like it was you're suddenly betrothed to them and it was going to be any big thing. Because like I'd even felt like at dances and stuff, it was like people wouldn't even ask you to dance unless they thought they might be interested in dating you. And I was like, this is a stupid dance. Like, we're gonna look like Frankenstein and like dance with each other like this to really crappy music. We're wearing terrible clothes right now. And like, we barely get any fast dances. We don't know how to dance to fast dances anyway because
Yeah,
most of us are white and we don't have rhythm and all this kind of stuff. So then it's like, and they also don't even put on good music to dance too.
yeah,
And so it was like so such a dumb experience because I just remember at dances, I was like, the whole point is to dance. And I also feel like one of the attitudes I had about dating was like, just because I go on a date with you doesn't mean I want to marry you. And so, like, I also never thought it was that big a deal to, like, that's part of why I was like, I wanted to go on a date with someone. It was mostly just because I was like, I just want to hang out with you more. But this doesn't mean I like you. It just means I don't know enough about you until I hang out with you some. And
yeah,
that was always kind of more my approach to dating. But like that, again, when you're in a situation or in a religion where there's so much emphasis on dating, nothing really feels like casual.
yeah.
And so then it does turn into like, I'm just trying to like have pretty normal standard experiences most people my age have in order to gain data about where I am at in relation to why, like if I want to be attached to someone and why.
Who are you even looking for? Like, what characteristics in a partner would be compatible to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just stuff like that. Like I remember one time even like in one of like in the congregation we were in where we met, one time like one of the leaders was like, I saw me and a couple of friends talking and they're like, I wish you guys would date more. You guys are just so wonderful. And it really bums me out that, but I've also felt like our congregation was pretty asexual. Like we had such a weird group
Yeah.
that we were all like, we're gonna just outsource any of this or shut it down completely. Like we're not gonna really dip into this pool a whole lot together. Um, but I agree, like like so many of the women in that congregation were so amazing that I was like, well, yeah, like you guys are all incredible. If you want to get married, anyone who would want to marry you should be so lucky. But like I just feel like a lot of us had different relationships to where we even were on that journey, and also just kind of within the faith itself of like what our trajectory was. But I
Yeah.
remember this leader of the that congregation found us and was like, "Oh, I just want you guys to blah blah blah." And so he's trying to talk to us about why we aren't dating or whatever. And we were just saying some things. He's like, I tell you what, if you guys have dates by the end of the week, then I will pay for whatever you guys do for the date. And then I was like, oh, okay. Free date. And more in my head, I was like, cool. So then we all kind of like briefly talked to each other about like, hey, well, what's something that we want to do that he'll pay for now?
And we'll
We
make
all decided on it. Yeah. And then like forever ago, I also would play badminton a lot with my friends on Sundays, and we would always make little badminton dares. And it was like one time was like, okay, if I went, like whoever the winning team was could give the losing team dares, and the dares were you have to ask these brothers out. And so then it was like dibs on which brother we asked out because one was like really cool and easy to talk to, and the other one was just like I'm sure he was cool or whatever, but he was just harder to connect with. Um, anyway, so I'd already lost that badminton dare, and I was already called dibs on the cool brother. So then I was like, oh yeah, well this will also be my chance to fulfill that dare. So they'll quit asking me about it when we go play badminton. I'm also hearing myself like say these words, and I was still very cool in my 20s. We would we would go play badminton for hours at the park, and it was really fun. But um, anyway. Yeah. And so I went, so like after this guy was like, yeah, we'll pay for the date. And we all, like, as a little group of friends, decided what we wanted to have him pay for. I was like, cool, well, I already know who I need to go ask. And so I just walked right up to him and I was like, hey, do you want to go out with me on Saturday? And he was like, yes. It was like really the whole of our interaction. And he and I were friendly and like we had like hung out at different activities and stuff before, and he was cool. But it was like really my first time like propositioning him at all. And all I did was just go up and be like, hey, do you want to go out on Saturday? And he's like, yes. And we went on a date and it was totally fun. And I really liked him like as a person, but I honestly like it had never registered to me that I might want to date him or anything like that. Plus, like I was aware that he had a crush on this other woman in our congregation, and I was nothing like her. So I was like, cool, this is definitely just me fulfilling my badminton thing, whatever. But over the course of the date, we ended up like holding hands or whatever. But because of our friends being there and seeing it, all of a sudden I felt so self-conscious because I also don't really love PDA or doing anything in front of people because it just always, again, it was like that whole being in your own head. There's a number of reasons why I've never really loved PDA at all, but especially in front of people from like this church group where marriage was such a big thing. And I was like, I honestly don't know if I want this or anything like that. And it like couldn't just be like a date. But even though like all of us were generally pretty cool, we all had like these internalized things too. So I remember even going on this date with him, we held hands, everyone else saw. And then like he tried holding my hand again, and then I quickly dropped it because all of a sudden I was like very self-conscious because I was like, I don't know if I want to do this and not in front of everyone else and blah 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 blah. And it turned into this whole thing, like instead of just enjoying this experience of like physical contact and very low stakes, innocent, chaste ways of like, hey, sometimes it is just nice to feel connected to someone physically, even in a very low stakes way because of the context, I like freaked out.
yes.
And then like by the end, like we're walking back to like he was walking me to my car or whatever. And like he's doing all the things that like to let me know, like, hey, like if you want, we could like kiss and stuff and all that. But I at this point I'm like so in my head because I'm like, I don't know if I really like you, and I don't think I'm ready to get married and all this. And it was one friggin' date. And it was one paid for date. And the reason I asked him was because of a dare. And it turned out I actually like over the course of this date was like, wow, he is pretty cool. I could see myself having feelings for him. That was the only thought that had entered my head. And instead of just enjoying that and like enjoying being with another person and physically connecting in very like in the moment innocent ways, I got so in my head that I was like, well, bye. I just booked it. And so then it was just so awkward. And then people were like, well, what do you think is going to happen? And I was like, oh, probably nothing. But
Nothing.
a lot of it was because like, if anything was going to happen, I'm sure I just like shot it all down. You know what I mean? But a lot of it was because, again, just the context, the situation, it just was like, we don't need to put that much pressure on this. This is just dating. Even if we all are trying to get us married, even if that is your goal, you can't treat every date like it's the one,
No.
you know?
I remember when I was 18, that was I went to school in Southern California and I met like there was a congregation there and it was at the USC campus. So it wasn't like a young single adult ward, it was literally a student ward where anyone, even if they were married or had kids, like was welcome to be there. Like if you were a student living in the Los Angeles area, like that was the ward that you went to.
Oh, cool. I didn't know I've never heard of that, but that's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was nice. It was really nice. But there's this one guy who was a law student and he was like on the wife prowl. And for some reason he was like Chelsea. He like chose me and I was
Because
like,
he had good taste.
I guess. Looking at it, I'm like, what the hell is going through your head? And
Mhm.
like he wasn't like creepy about it. He wasn't like he was vocal about it to other people and stuff, and he was like nice to me and I was nice to him, but like he never really asked me out. I think we went on one date like after maybe 2 years of knowing each other or something. But I just remember being so nervous because similar to like your story about like even just the physical touch of like the holding hands in a very innocent way and like a very normal experience. Like I think for me, I conflated the if I if I get into a relationship with someone else, like it's not just me making the shots or like having to say in like how this relationship forms. And I think one, the rejection sensitivity dysphoria was definitely on high alert. But then two, there was also this like kind of ingrained in you being in like such a high demand religion where and in a man
Cool. Patriarchal.
patriarchal
Mhm.
society, thank you, to
Yeah.
where the guys had more of a say in or were positioned as having more of a say in whether or not the marriage was like a good thing. So like if a guy showed interest in me and was like trying to pursue me, I like freaked out because I was like, I don't want God to tell him to marry me because I do not want like it for some reason in my head it was like I knew I could say no, but also like if they were that persistent or tried to like weaponize like their I had a vision and you were to be my wife, like what was I
Personal revelation stuff. Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Mhm.
So I think that just kind of like freaked me out. And I didn't realize like how much of a say I actually had. So I just was like, I didn't really start dating until I was like 26, 25. Yeah.
Yeah, and even that I would argue like totally makes sense. Like when you look at all those contexts of like you have a lot internally going on that you don't fully understand because your brain works in a way that is different than some of the people around you. You're not aware of how, you don't have words for it. You're also in this like high demand religion environment that is pushing you towards decisions that you don't feel ready for, but you also don't know how much of a voice you'll get or how respected that voice will be. And you have ambitions that you want to pursue and you don't have any sort of context or modeling for how you would be able to pursue both in a more balanced way.
Yeah.
Like it totally 100% makes sense to me why.
And it makes sense to me why like you would freak out like with the guy holding your hand too. Like
Yeah.
this stuff, I'm like, yeah, no shit. Like of course, those were like our thoughts, you know?
Yeah.
Like
And
the
like
fact,
regardless of how low stakes I was going into it, there was never any guarantee that the person you were on a date
yeah,
with was on the same page as you. So it did become this minefield of like, I need to show you the exact amount of attention that would be appropriate to be polite and gracious in this experience without tipping my hand too much in case like it turns into some sort of commitment that I don't want or I'm not interested in. I had a dream, like a stress dream when I was in third grade. I get stress dreams. I don't know if you ever got them. The fact that I started really young probably should be some sort of sign that like I was a kid with, a higher stress level than probably average. But again, I remember like in third grade having a dream and I was third grade me, fourth grade. I don't know. I was young. I can't remember. No, now I'm like conflating some dreams. It doesn't matter. But either way, when I was a kid, and it was before I could date, I had a dream that I had a couple dreams where I was like suddenly having to marry someone, or I was found myself married to someone, even though I was like, what? Because I was still a child, and I
yeah,
like was like, what's happening? Also, this is where like the story of Mary was actually very frightening to me, and not
yes,
like,
same, same,
congratulations, I'm God, have my baby.
yes, oh my
And it
God,
was like, but
same,
I'm a child. So
yeah,
like that was a very stressful thing to me too.
yeah,
But anyway, yeah, I just remember like at some point I had a dream, a stress dream where I suddenly was finding out like everyone in my family was like, Casey, are you so excited to get married? And I was like, what? They're like, Jason is so happy. And it was like some rando named Jason. I didn't know anyone named Jason at this time. Some rando named Jason. And it was like, he was so happy and my family was so happy. And I was like, but did I even ask God if this was what I was supposed to do? And I'm having this stress. And then cut to for when I did start becoming of dating age, anytime I met a person named Jason, I automatically was like, ah,
yeah,
what if it's my dream coming true? And I mean, like any person named Jason, like it could be the guy at the deli counter that I have to talk to for a second to get some meat slices handed to me. It could be like the kid in my class next to me that is so like we're definitely never going to have a connection, but I'm like, oh
yeah,
gosh, this Jason, is this the Jason? And it was just like, of course, again, like, and that just speaks to like how everything in kind of this context made dating and anything dating adjacent so much more stressful than it needed to be.
so true. It's so
Yeah.
true. Yeah,
Yeah.
but we survived. We lived to tell the tale, and
Yeah.
I feel like, and it definitely got to a place where I was way more neutral about dating.
Yeah. To the point where you could like marry someone that you liked.
Yeah, I know. I
Mm.
do highly recommend marrying outside of a high demand religion, though. That was a very good choice for me. But
Especially if you're not that into the high demand
that
religion.
is very true. Him and I
Yes.
were talking the other day. I don't even know why I brought this up, but oh, because it was during like our repair conversation after like being in the car, and I was like, I just want to spend more time with you, and I should have said it that way. But he was like, I just love you so much, like I want this to work, and I was like, I think the only way that it wouldn't work is if you wanted to become like Mormon, like if
The
you
only deal breaker at this point is you wanting to go to the religion that I left.
yes. And I was like, I also like I don't want to do the non-monogamy thing. And like wouldn't it be cool if you like cheated on me? But I think like of everything, it would just be like if you wanted any sort of like religion in our lives, I would be like, I gotta go.
Yeah, that might be like the first like thing falling.
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
Oh man.
yeah, bye. Yeah. Anyway, he's like, you don't, yeah. Knowing Phil, that is a very funny thing to say for because
Yeah.
that happened.
I
But
mean, if there was ever anyone that I've met that is very like pious and religious, I'd say Phil.
yeah, there you go. Well, on that note,
Mhm.
thanks for coming to this creepy playground with me.
You know what? I too don't want to pair off with anyone. Can I go pout in the driveway with
Yeah,
you?
let's go pat in the driveway.
Let's go be self-righteous in the driveway
Yeah.
together.
Yes, it is very
Deal.
deal. Let's do it. Bye.
Bye.